Greetings, my name is Eric Hutch. I'm a marriage and family counselor on staff at a church in Billings, Montana. I've had the honor and privilege of speaking to thousands of high school students in our community about the topic of abstinence, the safest sex choice. In it, we describe how to experience healthy relationships, how and why it's important to wait until marriage to engage in sexual activity. As I begin the presentation with students, I go over two things. Here are those two things. Number one, I'm not here to talk down to students. I'm not here to talk over their heads. I'm not here to even talk at them. I'm here to have a conversation with them about a very important topic, about a topic that many students really want to talk about. So we will have a very respectful conversation back and forth. So I ask students not to have side conversations. There will be laughter and giggling, I get it, but not to be distracting to the students around them. Also, it's difficult for me to present over the top of students, so to keep their side conversations to a minimum and not even have them at all at times. We will have a very respectful conversation with regards to the things they share in the classroom and with what I will share with them. The second thing I like to tell students is this: I'm not here to tell you not to have sex. I want you to have sex. I want you to have a lot of sex. By now, students are giggling and laughing and turning to their neighbor. I like to say something like this. Now, students, whatever you do, don't reach for your cell phones right now and start texting your mom, saying things like, "Hey, Mom, we had a guest speaker today. He told us that we are supposed to have lots of sex. So when I get home tonight, Mom, at the dinner table, we're going to have a different kind of conversation. Things are going to change in the household." Don't do that. Students, please. I am confident by the end of the presentation, you're going to have a rich understanding of when it is best to have this experience. And again, I'm not here to tell you not to have sex. I want you to have a lot of sex. We're going to hand out a booklet to the students, so an assistant or a teacher will hand out booklets, things that they can take notes in, and also write in some fill-ins as they come up on the screens. While the notebooks are being handed out, I'd like to introduce you to my family. Here's my family up on the screens. I have 4 boys, Kyle, Kemper, Carter, and Kobe. Notice that their first names all begin with the letter K. We also have their middle names all starting with the letter A. When you get married and have a family, don't do that to your children. It makes it very, very difficult to find their socks when you're doing laundry together, and they're initialed K-A-H, 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 K-A-H. Please get more creative than we did. We're just kind of crazy parents. But let me introduce you to my kids. In the gray t-shirt is my oldest boy, Kyle. He graduated from high school in 2010. Our number 2 son is Kemper. He's in the black t-shirt. Kemper graduated from high school in 2012. He married Melanie in December of 2014. Melanie graduated from high school in 2011. Then we have Carter. He's in the yellow sweatshirt. He graduated from high school in 2015. And Kobe, our youngest, he graduates from high school in 2018. 4 boys. Here's what we've learned about boys. Boys come with a lot of sights, sounds, and smells. And my wife and I are looking forward to that day as empty nesters when those sights, sounds, and smells have now disappeared. Let me introduce you to another little guy in our family. This is my grandson, Lakin. Lakin was born in January of 2015. I love to spend time building things with Lakin. You know, those big like Lego blocks, build these huge towers. It takes me about 20 minutes to build those towers. It takes Lakin about 10 seconds to destroy them. Here's what we also have learned about boys. Boys and girls are a little different. Girls like to build house and play house. Boys like to break house and burn house. It's just the differences between the genders, and we really enjoy our little guy and building things and breaking things with him. Let me introduce you to one more member of the family, my wife. This is my wife, Sherry. We met on a blind date in high school back in 1984. We dated for 5 years before we got married, and then we've been married since. So we've enjoyed a long, happy marriage. There have been ups and downs. But one thing we like to do is we like to get out and kayak together. We have a tandem kayak. I like to ride in the back. It has these cool little pedals so you can steer the boat back and forth on the lake. While she's paddling up front, I like to lift my paddle out of the water. Don't tell her I told you that or I'm going to hurt you. We also like to hike, so we go on hiking trips across our region and just have a lot of fun getting outdoors. That's my wife, Sherry. We enjoy a lot of fun together. So students, for a moment, let me get some feedback from you. What is a definition of safe sex that you tend to hear most often? At this point, you're likely to hear all kinds of little things like definitions of use a condom or use protection of some kind, or even waiting until marriage to engage in sex. One student got brave in my class presentation, and he said something like this: wrap your burrito. Pretty clever. Anyway, I enjoy all the kinds of responses students give me. Here's the definition that we're going to work from in the presentation. We're going to build the content of the presentation around this definition. In the notebook, students turn to the very first page of the booklet, top left-hand side of the page. There's some blanks in that definition. The fill-ins will be in red on the screen. Here you go. Definition of safe sex: a man and a woman, both virgins prior to marriage, enjoying sexual intimacy within the boundaries of the marriage relationship. Say it one more time. A man and a woman, both virgins prior to marriage, enjoying sexual intimacy within the boundaries of the marriage relationship. As you complete those fill-ins, catch eyes with me once again. Let's just pause for a moment. Students, if you don't take anything more from this presentation, embed this definition deep within your head. This definition is the safest sex you could ever experience on the planet. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying something like this in your mind. Hutch, there's a lot of different ways to have sex. That's a very conservative perspective on safe sex. I totally get it. In fact, you have permission to choose when, where, and how you're going to engage in sex and with whom. That's your decision. You have the freedom to choose. Nonetheless, be very mindful that this definition is the safest sex you could ever experience. It begs another question. What kinds of sexual activity, if we choose to live within this framework, what kinds of activity are we waiting to engage in until we are married? That's the next definition in your notebook, bottom of the same page. Here you go. Let's define sexual abstinence. Voluntarily abstaining or refraining from. Voluntarily abstaining or refraining from sexual activity to include vaginal, anal, or oral sex, or mutual masturbation until entering into a marriage relationship. Voluntarily abstaining or refraining from sexual activity to include vaginal, anal, or oral sex, or mutual masturbation until entering into a marriage relationship. Definition of sexual abstinence. Where are the ladies in the room? Ladies, just raise your hand. Let me catch eyes with you. Let me talk to the ladies for just a moment. Guys, you can listen in. Ladies, there's a very important neurochemical that goes off in your body during 3 life events. Let me share those life events with you. Guys, listen in. The first life event that this neurochemical goes off, by the way, this neurochemical is called oxytocin. It's a bonding chemical. It helps you to feel connected or bonded to that individual or event. The chemical is called oxytocin. So here you go. The first event is this: childbirth. When you are birthing a child and that baby descends into the birth canal, what begins to happen is your body secretes oxytocin. Oxytocin floods your brain with this neurochemical, causing you to feel this incredible bond and connection to your baby. The second event, breastfeeding. Now, when you take that baby and you nurture that baby at your breast, what begins to happen is that your body secretes oxytocin, flooding your brain with this neurochemical. It causes you to feel this incredible bond or connection to your baby. By the way, the activity of breastfeeding, the breast milk contains oxytocin. The oxytocin goes into your baby, also causing your baby now to feel this incredible bond or connection to you. The third event, sexual activity. When you engage in sexual activity, what happens is your body secretes this neurochemical called oxytocin, causing you to feel this incredible bond or connection to that individual or event. Guys, for you, it's a different neurochemical doing the very same thing. That neurochemical called vasopressin, or vasopressin, however you want to define it. Vasopressin does the very same thing, causing you to feel this incredible bond or connection to that individual or event. By the way, these bonds, you can't see them. You feel them. You remember them. And you take these invisible bonds with you into future relationships. Working with hundreds of couples in our community, one of the things I discovered is that those couples who have engaged in premarital sexual activity, they bring invisible bonds with them into new relationships, making it very difficult for them to bond and connect with their partner, their spouse, their life mate. So be very mindful that these neurochemicals have very powerful effects at creating invisible bonds that go with you. You never forget them. How safe is this safe sex message that we tend to hear most often of use a condom? Let me ask you a rhetorical question. Everybody understand a rhetorical question? If you don't, it's simply this. I know the answer before I ask it, so it begs the question why ask it, right? Are condoms 100% safe? Very likely, most of you are going to say no, and you're right. But here's what bothers me about your response. I hate the fact that our culture treats you like you're stupid. I hate that they treat you like you're stupid. They say this to you: if you're going to have safe sex and use a condom. But we all know that condoms are not 100% safe. So students, for a moment, I want to teach you two terms. It's in your notebook. You don't have to write anything down, but just follow along with me. I want to teach you the difference between risk reduction versus risk elimination. The proper use of a condom reduces an individual's risk of pregnancy or sexually transmitted infection or disease. Did you catch that? The proper use of a condom reduces an individual's risk of pregnancy or sexually transmitted infection or disease. Why do we know that? Because we know that condoms are not 100% safe. Watch this. The practice of sexual abstinence, or waiting until marriage to engage in sexual activity, eliminates an individual's risk of pregnancy or sexually transmitted infection or disease. Simply waiting until marriage to engage in sexual activity completely eliminates your risk of pregnancy or sexually transmitted disease or infection. But wait a moment. By the way, most couples, after their I-dos, they desire children. So pregnancy at that point is a desired outcome. It's not a risk. It's something that many couples desire once they are married. In your booklet, you're going to see this diagram. So this diagram, we understand and know that condoms are very effective at preventing pregnancy and sexually transmitted disease or infection. However, a microscopic tear in the wall of a condom, a manufacturing flaw in its production, or a condom's improper use, at best can only reduce your risk. Yet another reminder to us that condoms are not 100% effective at reducing or preventing pregnancy and sexually transmitted disease or infection. Interesting statistics. According to the 2017 Montana Youth Risk Behavior Survey, notice this among freshman students who responded to the survey. 60.8% of freshman high school students in Montana used a condom during their most recent sexual intercourse experience. Did you catch that? 60.8% of freshman students in Montana used a condom during their most recent sexual experience. Now, you would think with all of this safe sex messaging that you're getting bombarded with over your lifespan, that through your high school experience, you're going to take less risks during sexual activity. But look what happens by the time those students reach their senior year in high school. Now, only 51% of Montana high school seniors, before they cross the platform and move the tassel, are using a condom during their most recent sexual experience. That's a little alarming because, again, you would think that by the time they get to their senior year of high school, they're going to take less risk, but that's not the case. They're actually taking more risks during their sexual experiences. So we're going to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to take some time to unpack why it is that students are engaged in sexual activity. Before we do, ladies, let me talk to you about the science of the cervix. This is information not being taught to you in your public high school sex ed experience. And by the way, your family practitioner knows this information, and this is information they should be talking to you about. I'm going to read to you an excerpt from a book entitled You're Teaching My Child What? By Dr. Miriam Grossman. She's a psychologist at a Division I school in our country, and she discovered some very important information that's not being taught during public school sex ed classes. I want to share some of that information with you, my assistant. Thank you. So let me read this to you, an excerpt straight from her book. The cervix. The entrance to the uterus at the end of the vagina plays a central role in female sexual health, but few people are aware of how it increases a girl's vulnerability to sexually transmitted infections. The cervix is the site of two of the most common sexually transmitted infections, HPV and chlamydia. HPV is necessary for cervical cancer to develop, and chlamydia can cause chronic pelvic inflammatory disease, ectopic pregnancies, miscarriages, and infertility. Girls under the age of 20 are being hit the hardest by those epidemics. One reason is their immature cervix. It's critical to understand this. All things being equal, the cervix of an adult is more difficult to infect than the cervix of a teen. The more mature cervix is protected by 20 to 30 layers of cells. In contrast, the cervix of a teen has a central area called the transformation zone. You can see it on the screen. It's that area noted in blue. Here the cells are only one layer thick. The T-zone, as it's commonly referred, is largest at puberty, and it slowly shrinks as the cervix matures. The thin folds of fragile single cells are transformed progressively into a thick, flat shield with many layers. The T-zone can be seen during a routine pelvic exam. It makes the cervix look like a bullseye, which is actually kind of fitting, because that's exactly where the bugs like to go. Ask any self-respecting virus or bacteria about their life goal, and this is what you're going to hear: to find a good home where I can be fruitful and multiply. That is the purpose of their existence. To reach that home, the layers of cells must be penetrated. It's difficult, if not impossible, to get through the many layers of a mature cervix. But penetration of the T-zone's single layer is a cinch, making this area of your body, ladies, prime real estate for genital infections and sexually transmitted diseases. Ladies, listen for a moment. About 2 or 3 years ago, your body's entered into this transformational stage called puberty. And what happened during puberty is that your body now changes, especially this area of your body, the cervix. Your decisions to delay sexual activity until you say I do now cooperates with your body's natural development and defenses to protect itself, to protect you from sexually transmitted diseases and infections. And guys listening in, please understand, I believe it's important for you to know this, because the people you're doing life with right now in schools across the state and country, these people that you're doing life with, it's important for you not to put them into a situation where they may be jeopardizing their health. Remember, cancer can affect a woman's health for her future. So be mindful to protect those you're doing life with and not put pressure on a young lady to engage in an activity, sex, for which their bodies are at great risk and jeopardy for diseases and infections. So students, for a moment, tell me some reasons why your classmates might be engaged in sexual activity. For example, what do you hear at events? What do you hear in the classrooms, maybe the locker room? What do friends tell you why they're engaged in sex? At this point, you're going to hear all kinds of different responses. Maybe they're in love, they're curious, they were drunk or high. A lot of different reasons why students are engaged in sexual activity. In your notebooks, on page number 6, you're going to see a list of reasons. There are some missing blanks. I'm going to put those missing pieces on the screen for you. Here are some reasons why students are engaged in sexual activity. They met someone they really loved. They're engaged to be married. They have an opportunity with someone they like. They've reached a certain age or maturity level. They feel pressure because everyone else is. They feel pressure from their partner, and some don't know. As you're writing in those fill-ins, notice to the right of those statements 2 columns of numbers broken into guys and gals. There are some numbers missing. I'll give you those numbers up on the screen. Here you go. As you're writing in those missing numbers, pay close attention to the numbers, because the numbers tell a story. There's a message hidden in those numbers. What do you discover? What do you see in those numbers? Note here the highest numbers for each of the guys and the gals. For the guys, 43% of boys are responding to a sexual experience. Why? Because they have an opportunity with somebody they like. 54% of girls are responding to a sexual experience. Why? Because they met someone they really love. If anything, what this survey does is it helps us to understand that guys and girls at this age and stage of life approach the sexual experience very differently. For the girl, and by the way, I've counseled with hundreds of couples in our community. I've learned a few things from women, which is not much, but here's what I've learned. A girl is more likely to engage in a sexual experience when she feels safe, secure, and connected. Safe, secure, and connected. She feels loved. She feels protected. At that point, she's more likely to engage in a sexual experience. For the guy at this age and stage of life, he's looking for an opportunity. Now, I get it, guys. Don't shout me down. Don't yell at me. Don't throw things at the screen. I get it. This isn't an implication on all guys. Not all guys think this way. But at this age and stage of life, guys tend to look for an opportunity. Girls are looking for an experience. They're waiting for someone that they love to then experience sex with. That's the opportunity that I understand most women are looking for. Guys who will delay their gratifications until it is best, until after their I do's. Here's some more reasons why students are engaged in sex. On the screens in your notebooks, here's some more fill-ins for you. They were curious and they wanted to experiment. They wanted to be more popular or impress their friends. They were in love. And lastly, they were under pressure from those they were dating. Notice that last statement. 2/3 of the girls responded to the survey and said they were feeling pressure from their partner to engage in a sexual experience. For guys, only 1/3 of them felt pressure from their partner. Another reminder of why it's important, guys, for you and I, to really protect the ones that we're doing life with at this age and stage of life. Protect them. Don't put them into a situation where they can jeopardize their health or feel pressure to engage in an experience that their bodies are not ready for. So, I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying something like this to yourself. You're saying, Hutch, do you have any clue? I mean, do you really get it? Do you know what it's like to be a student in our day and age? Do you understand the pressures that we face, especially in this area of relationships and sexual activity? Well, I think I do. I think I have a little bit of a clue. You might even be saying something like this. Do you really believe that there are students waiting until marriage to engage in sex? Well, the answer to your question is yes. I just wish there were more of them. In fact, according to the Montana Youth Risk Behavior Survey, in 2017, freshman students responded this way. 23.8% of freshman students have had a sexual experience. 23.8%. Now do the math. 76.2% of Montana high school freshmen have never engaged in sexual intercourse. Not everybody is doing it. However, watch what happens by the time those students reach their senior year. Now, 63.9% of Montana high school seniors, as they cross the platform and move the tassel, they do so having engaged in a sexual experience. And do the math. 36.1% of Montana high school seniors cross the platform, move the tassel. Catch this. They do so, they graduate high school. Now listen, they graduate high school as virgins. They haven't had sex. 36.1% of Montana high school seniors graduate as virgins, not having sex. Not everybody is doing it. I just wish there were more students graduating high school never having sex. It would make for healthier relationships, healthier marriages later in life. Ladies, do you know what it's like when you go on that very first date? You know, if dad is home and dad is around, what does daddy want to do? What does dad want to do? Now, you're likely to get all kinds of responses, things like meet the boy, have a conversation with the boy, take the boy out in the backyard, beat the boy, hit the boy, kill the boy. That's a little violent, right? Now, we live in Montana land. Montana is a hunting state. What does daddy want to do? Right. Daddy wants to show off the guns, right? He wants to put a little fear in the belly of the boy. Basically, he wants to tell that boy, you mess with my daughter, I'm going to mess with your anatomy, right? So ladies, just for a moment, let's just do a quick little role play. I'm going to ask one of you to be my daughter, and let me be your father, and let's do a quick little role play. So that might look something like this. I'm sitting in my couch in the living room watching a football game on a Saturday afternoon. You come rushing out of the bedroom into the living room and you're dancing and you're hopping. You're so excited. Daddy, 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 I got to talk to you. Daddy, 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 look at me. Daddy, 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 look at me. Daddy, daddy, turn off the TV and look at me. Okay, sweetheart, what's going on? You're obviously very excited, very animated. Tell me, what's happening in your world right now? Daddy, I want you to understand that I got a call from a boy today, and he wants to take me on my very first date tonight. Daddy, my very first date. Do you realize, Daddy, this is very important, my very first date. And don't screw it up. Okay. Honey, I'm not going to screw things up, I promise. But I want you to understand something. I've been thinking about this day since the day you took your first breath. I've been thinking about it. And here's what's not going to happen tonight when that boy comes to pick you up at the house. He's not going to race up to the house. He's not going to do this little beep beep thing. You rush out in the car and speed away. Oh, no. No! What's going to happen is this, sweetheart. That boy is going to come up to the house. He's going to park the car. He's going to walk up to the front door. He's going to knock on the door. He's going to come inside this house. We're going to have a little eyeball to eyeball, face to face, man to man conversation. Do we have an understanding, sweetie? As she nods in the affirmative, she's going to race back to her bedroom and get ready for a date that's not going to happen for another 5 to 7 hours. Meanwhile, on the other side of town is the boy. And at this point, I would find a boy in the classroom and ask you to be a volunteer. Just imagine that you're that boy preparing to have a date with my daughter. And here's what you're doing. You're in the shower and you're getting your man suit all cleaned up. All nice and saucy. You get out of the shower. You put on some spices. Don't like the way that smells. So you get back in the shower and you wash that off. And then you get back out of the shower, you dry off, put on some new spices. Don't like the way that smells. So you get back in the shower and you do this 7 to 20 times just to get the right spices on, right? Then you hop inside your compact little car with that big muffler thing. Yeah, I don't get it either. You get inside that tiny little car. You turn up the bass and you're thumping and you're bumping all the way through town. You come up into the neighborhood where I live, picking up my daughter, and everything is shaking. I can hear you a mile away because the china in my cabinets is shaking. You pull up into the driveway and you shut things down and you do this little thing. Right? Well, my daughter ain't coming out of the house, so you try again. She still ain't coming out of the house, so you try one more time and you're a little bit perturbed and you kind of lay into the horn, right? Right? She ain't coming out of the house, so you get out of the car and you walk up to the house and you knock. I hear the knock, I go into dad mode. I strip down to my whitey tighties and that wife beater t-shirt thing. I know some of you have seen that, and I'm very sorry for the visual right now. I sit down on the couch and I wait for the action to happen. My daughter races out of the bedroom. She rushes up to the front door. She opens the door. Hi. I'm so excited to go on a date with you. Before we can go on a date together, you have to talk to my dad, and you have to have a conversation with my dad. My dad is sitting on the couch over there in those white things. I can't look at him. It hurts my eyes. And then I get up from the couch and I say, hey, come on in. It's nice to meet you. Why don't you sit down on the couch here next to me? Just sit down on the couch right here next. Sit down on the couch next to me, and don't ever touch me. If you touch me, things are going to get sideways in your life in a hurry. And by the way, during this entire conversation, we need to maintain eye contact. And while we're maintaining eye contact, I don't want you looking at the football game. I don't want you looking at the magazines on the counter. I don't want you looking at the dead squirrel in the corner. You maintain eye contact with me this entire time. And the proper response to me is always, yes, sir. Do we have an understanding? Very good. So let's proceed. My peachy cheeks over here, she has a curfew of 7:30. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this. Yeah, but Mr. Hutch, it's only 10 after 6. That doesn't give us a lot of time. Right. My peachy cheeks has a curfew of 7:30. In fact, I highly recommend you have her home by 7 o'clock, because if you can't have her home on time, I have a couple of friends that are going to meet you at the door when you arrive. So what do? I get up from the couch and I walk over to the closet. I reach in the closet, and then I pull out my gun and I come back to the couch and I sit down. These are my friends, Smith and Wesson. I open up the double-barrel shotgun and put a couple rounds in the chamber just so you know it works. And then I say this. Now remember, my peachy cheeks has a curfew of 7:30. Which I highly recommend 7 o'clock, because if you can't have her home on time by her curfew, my friends are going to meet you at the door and they're going to make a mess of you all over the front yard. Do we have an understanding? And then the next thing that's going to happen after that is the neighborhood dogs and cats are going to come by and they're going to carry your carcass away. We have an understanding? Okay, ladies, just chill out. Just chill out. I do not have a shotgun. I have a sniper rifle. So let me help you understand that my wife and I have created a 500-yard perimeter around our home. We have trained our one and only dog to chirp anytime a female steps over that line. When I hear the dog chirping, I reach for my rifle, put a round in the chamber, and I look for you. When I find you, I put a round right between your eyeballs. I knock your carcass right down there in the yard. And then the next thing that happened is the neighborhood dogs and cats come by and they carry your carcass away. And I'm okay with that. I really am okay with that. Now, I know what you're thinking. Many of you are raising your hand because you need a potty pass and you're not going to return to the classroom. I totally get it. So just chill out. Just relax. Just relax. I don't have a shotgun. I don't have a sniper rifle, okay? You're safe in my neighborhood. I'm actually an archer. You will never see me. I will be hiding in the bushes waiting for your arrival. And when you come up to the front door, and just before you touch that doorbell with your little finger, you'll feel a little pinch in your rib cage. It's the result of my arrow being shot straight into right through your heart. You will start to get a little sleepy. You will lie down on the steps, never to awaken. And the next thing that will happen is the neighborhood dogs and cats will come by, and they will carry your carcass away. Okay with that. I will sleep very well at night. Thank you very much. Okay, so understand. I don't have a sniper rifle. I don't have a shotgun. I don't have a bow and an arrow. But what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is this. Give my wife and I time to train our boys to be men. Give us time to train our boys to be men. At the age of 13, our family developed a tradition, a ceremony called a rite of passage. And during that ceremony, it's simply this. It's a moment we recognize that our boys are becoming men. And during this transition from boyhood to manhood, they are learning the rights, the responsibilities, and the privileges of what it means to be a man. They also are learning how to respect, to love, and to cherish the girls and the women around them. During that ceremony, we give them a ring. Some of you understand the meaning of this ring. Maybe some of your families have gone through a ceremony similar. But the ring simply is this. It's a challenge to them to maintain their purity, their virginity, until the day they say, I do. And as much as they are willing to invite us into the battle with them, we will help them. We will help them in this battle to maintain their purity because we know, as parents, we know the things that they are battling against that want to steal their affections, that they want to steal away this thing called their virginity. We get it. We totally understand. That ring came with a challenge as well. Another challenge goes something like this. If our sons choose to wait until the day they say I do to experience their very first kiss, we will pay them $1,000. In December 2014, I had the honor and the privilege of standing on the platform with Kemper and Melanie. What was amazing is they chose to wait until the day they said I do to have their first kiss. Kemper had never kissed another woman except his mother. So one thing that is interesting is that as I'm standing there on the platform helping them to exchange their vows, just before I gave them permission to kiss for the very first time, I reached into my wallet, I pulled out 10 crisp $100 bills, all in sequence. I gave one to Kemper. I gave 9 to Melanie. Guys, you just got to get used to it. That's the way it's going to work in the household, okay? You are going to make the money. She is going to manage the money. I just wanted to get them ready for that moment right then. Students, let me be a little transparent with you. I've been involved with many weddings in my lifetime. And I can never remember a wedding whereby there was such celebration that erupted after a couple's first kiss. That day for Kemper and Melanie, it was amazing. People were screaming and cheering. It was proof to me that fairy tales do exist if you know what to look for, if you know what to become. Do you remember at the top of the presentation, the picture of that cute little guy in that guitar case? Our grandson, Lakin, remember him? He is actually the son of my oldest boy, Kyle. You see, Kyle chose a different path. Simply, Lakin was born out of wedlock. What that means is that mom and dad were not married when Lakin was brought into this world. Now, don't get me wrong, Kyle and Lakin's mother had every intention of getting married. They were engaged for a season until the engagement broke apart. And then months later, the relationship blew apart. And now I watch my son struggle with the dynamics of sharing my grandson back and forth between households. May I be a little vulnerable with you? I hate it. I hate what it does to my son, and I hate what it does to my grandson. And I hate what it does to some of you. You see, students, when we choose to wait until marriage to engage in sexual activity, we protect ourselves from something. We also protect ourselves and others from the consequences of sexual experiences outside of marriage. I'd like to give you a few moments to work together in groups of 2 and 3 to identify in your notebook, on that page in your notebook, there are 3 sections. Give you an opportunity to identify what you protect yourself from physically, emotionally, and relationally. You'll have a couple minutes to do this, so we're going to give you a chance to work together, and then we're going to call you back in just a moment. So let's talk for a moment about what you protect yourself from physically and share your responses. And what you're likely going to hear is the obvious ones. You protect yourself from pregnancy. You also protect yourself from sexually transmitted infections and diseases. So those are the 2 obvious ones. There's a third one that many students miss. That third one is cancer. Remember, we talked about the science of the cervix, and at the tip of the cervix, a woman is very vulnerable to sexually transmitted diseases and infections. HPV is necessary for cervical cancer to develop. You protect yourself from cancer when you choose to wait until marriage to engage in sex. Whenever you make choices and decisions to protect yourself from something today, you provide for something in your future. So in your notebooks, to the right-hand side, in the right-hand margin of that same page, write down these things up on the screen. Here you go. Here's what you provide for in your future. You provide for a heritage, purity, and your virginity. These are actual gifts that you give to your partner on the day you say, I do. You give these things to your spouse, to your life mate. By the way, these are things that you not only give to your partner, you also give them to your children, because one day those kids are going to come to you at this age and stage of life asking you, Mom and Dad, how did you guys navigate these years of life and the relationships that you had? And when you choose to wait until marriage to engage in sex, now those conversations are going to sound very differently. There are going to be gifts that you now give to your kids when you choose to wait until marriage to engage in sex. How about some emotional reasons to wait? What are the things you protect yourself from there? What you're likely going to hear here is things like sadness and depression and a broken heart. Here's some more things up on the screens. You protect yourself from guilt. You protect yourself from performance-based sex, breaking up hardships, and a poor self-image. Those are the things that you protect yourself from. What do you provide for in your future? Well, you provide for maturity, genuine love, respect for one's body, and only one first time. By the way, these things that you provide for in your future, I like to describe these as emotional markers. When these markers are present in a student's life, it's amazing how it affects their well-being. When these things go away, when they're gone, it affects how they learn. It affects how they interact with classmates and teachers. It affects the way that they think about themselves when they wake up each morning and go about their day. These are things that you provide for in your future. You provide for a sound mind, a sense of well-being when these markers remain in place. What about some relational reasons to wait? What do you protect yourself from there? You'll hear all kinds of things with respect to relational reasons to wait. Let me give you a few of them up on the screen. Here you go. You protect yourself from comparison, from difficult courtships and damaged relationships. What you provide for in your future is a bond of love and a bond of trust. This bond of love and a bond of trust, I like to describe these like relationship muscles. It's what holds a relationship together. These muscles are incredibly strong, but they're easily damaged. And if you were old enough to remember the conversations mom and dad were having when things blew apart in their relationship, if that's ever occurred, you may have heard something like this. Are you ready for it? You may have heard this. I just don't love you anymore. I just don't trust you anymore. Students, those statements are clues. They are clues that there was damage done to these muscles that has never healed well. And this damage likely occurred long before their marriage and long before their relationship. When did this damage occur? What's interesting is it usually occurs during this age and stage of life, during their high school experience, as students are moving in and out of relationships. And when there's not enough time to heal these muscles, it makes a marriage relationship very difficult to stay intact, to feel bonded and connected. There's a couple of principles that affect relationships. The one I'd like to share with you is this. It's in your notebooks. It goes something like this. Romance is like a car with no brakes. Just imagine for a moment that you wake up one morning and you have this exotic car that you've always dreamed of sitting in your driveway. As you awaken from your coma and you walk over to the window of your bedroom and you look out into the driveway and you see this car, you're freaking out. You're so excited. You throw on some clothes. You rush down the stairs. You go into the kitchen. There's this little card that says, "For you, enjoy," and a set of keys. You grab the keys. You rush out into the driveway. You walk around this car. You're just amazed at how fast it looks and how expensive it looks. You touch the paint. Even the paint feels expensive. You put the key in the door and you open the door and you get inside. You sit inside that car and the chair just wraps right around you. You reach out your hands to grab the steering wheel, this fine Corinthian leather. It just smells amazing, right? You take the key looking for a place to put it into an ignition, but there is no place. Now you're looking for a button to push to start the car. Cars don't start like that anymore. They start on voice command. So you say, "Start the car." It roars to life. You feel the power of the engine beneath your seat. You put it in first gear and you step on the gas and it throws you into the intersection. Pretty soon you're flying 100 miles an hour with your hair on fire down the highway, having the time of your life. Romance is a lot like that. It's like that car with no brakes. And you wake up one day realizing you've gone way too far, way too fast, stayed way too long. As you take your foot off the gas to try and slow things down, you reach for the brake only to discover there is no brake. So you do the next logical thing, something that so many of you have done before and some of you have already done. In order to get out of that relationship, you jump. And everybody knows what happens when you jump from a moving car. When your body hits the pavement, it explodes into a million pieces. Then you do this strange little ritual. You scrape all these pieces together into a neat little pile called self. And then you get back in another car. Students, in my humble opinion, you're doing more to prepare for divorce than you are for marriage. Because there's another principle that affects our lives today. In your notebooks, here you go. It's called the law of the harvest. The law of the harvest goes something like this. You sow a thought, you reap a habit. You sow a habit, you reap a character. You sow a character, you reap a destiny. Sow a thought, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. We grew up in Montana in an agricultural state. We kind of get this. It goes something like this. You put corn in the ground, you get wheat. You put a sugar beet in the ground and you get an avocado, right? Of course not. That's crazy speak. You put corn in the ground, you get corn. You put a sugar beet in the ground, you get a sugar beet. That's the law of the harvest. What you put into the ground is what you reap as a harvest later. So let me do a little Jedi mind trick. Okay, let me just take a moment and do a little Jedi mind trick. Resistance is futile. So just hang out with me for a moment. It goes something like this. Healthy choices today are like seeds you put into the soil of your life. Healthy outcomes tomorrow. Unhealthy choices today are like seeds you put into the soil of your life. Unhealthy outcomes tomorrow. Healthy choices, healthy outcomes. Unhealthy choices, unhealthy outcomes. Why? Because of the law of the harvest. You and I cannot break that law. Healthy choices, healthy outcomes. Unhealthy choices, unhealthy outcomes. Here's what you have to understand about the law of the harvest. Two things. The harvest is always in the future. I have no idea when your harvest will come. But mark my word, it will come. Number two, you always harvest more than what you've put into the ground. The harvest is always more than what you've put into the ground. So let me give you 4 strategies for life-giving choices in your life. In your notebooks, here you go up on the screens. Number 1, don't leave dead time. Don't leave dead time. Create a healthy plan for engaging in life with your friends and in relationships. Execute the plan and go home. Don't wait for things to happen. It's in those moments when you get curious and you start to experiment, especially in a relationship. Create a healthy plan, execute the plan, and go home. Number 2, go out in groups. Surround yourself with people who have the same values, morals, and principles that you have, same dreams. You see, we all have a tendency to drive this thing called life into the ditch. Friends are those people who kick you back between the guardrails so that you're heading down the highway of life again. And by the way, if your friends aren't kicking you back between the guardrails, they're not your friends. They're your party buddy looking for another car wreck. So keep that in mind. Go out in groups, especially those who support your dreams, your goals, your mission in life. Number 3, watch what you watch. This is a play on words. Be very careful of the things that you're watching. You've probably heard of this tool called the internet. Yeah, the internet has opened up more information to our world than ever before. And one thing that is highly destructive in relationships is pornography. It is wrecking relationships. You'll see on the screen that a brain addicted to pornography looks very similar to a brain addicted to heroin. The brain chemistry of individuals engaged in watching pornography is troubling and startling. If you're struggling with pornography, please get some help. Do not let this thing fester. It will be a problem later in your life. Number 4, set physical limits. You have to decide today what you're going to permit and allow in a relationship. It's way too late when you're in that car flying down the highway 100 miles an hour with your hair on fire. You have to set those limits today. Now, before you leave the presentation, there's one more thing that I need students to complete, and that's an evaluation. It lets us know how we are doing with the presentation. So an assistant's going to hand out an evaluation to each one of you. By the way, make sure that you put your class period, make sure you circle your sex, either male or female. That would be the sex assigned at birth. You're also going to indicate the date today, the name of your teacher, and your age and grade level. You're going to notice 12 statements on the evaluation with a checkbox, a series of checkboxes next to each statement. On a scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree, please check one box per statement. Strongly agree, strongly disagree, or anywhere between. One checkbox per statement. There's 3 questions or statements at the very bottom of the evaluation that you're welcome to fill in some comments. We'll give you just a few moments to do that. While you're completing that evaluation, there's several questions that get asked during presentations that I want to share with you. Some of the responses, or what I would respond to. Number 1 question is this: is oral sex sex? The answer to that question is yes. Based on what we learned from the presentation and how a body responds to sexual experiences, these neurochemicals that go off, oxytocin and vasopressin, affect us. It helps us to feel a bond or connection to that individual or event. So yes, oral sex is very much sex. Number 2, what should you do if you think you have an STI or an STD? If you think you have a sexual disease, please talk to an adult. Let us help you with next steps. Do not let this problem fester. You can wreck your life or your future. It can wreck the lives of others. So please let us help you get help. And 3, the last question, which I believe is the most important question, is this: Hutch, you are too late. So now what? Start over. Start again. Start today and make a commitment to wait until marriage to engage in sexual activity. I've watched more individuals and couples transform their relationship and their lives for the better when they've chosen to wait to engage in sexual activity when they say their I do's. So start over and start again. Last thing, a couple gifts. For those who participated in my little melodrama, I have a gift for the girl and the guy. It's not much. It's only $1. It's a $1 ring. But it's a challenge to wait for your one. Wait for the one when you say I do, and then have as much sex as you want. Go crazy with sex. I wish I can give you $1,000. Some students have asked for adoption papers. Not going to do that. Just don't have enough room in the household. But these are gifts for you to remind you to wait for your one. So students, before you leave, one last frame for you. Experience is a great teacher, but the tuition is often costly. Experience is a great teacher, but the tuition is often costly. Wait for your one. Experience sex inside of marriage. It is the safest sex choice.